Hi.
Bonjour.
Bienvenue. Welcome to The Local. We're in France. We've got our first guest, Ilya, from State Capital. And the beverages have changed a little bit as well.
Check
so Tim's going to pour that out.
We've got some rosé, which seems very appropriate given we're on the south coast of France. And we go for the guest first.
This is live coming from EthCC, which they've moved to Cannes this year, which I have to say is quite a little bit nicer than Brussels.
Weather's better.
Did you enjoy? Did you?
Yeah. I thought Brussels was good last year.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
And the weather was actually good.
It was quite warm.
Yeah.
It was quite warm.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not quite the south of France, is
No,
it? I mean, we have to be.
not.
I mean, I feel like as a northerner in general, I'm allowed to be down bad about the weather in the north and stuff, and be like, you know.
Do you have to say cheers now?
Anyway,
As well.
is it salut?
Was it à bientôt or?
I can't remember. How do you say it in French?
Santé.
Santé.
We all got it wrong.
So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, we have to talk about EthCC. This is where we are, and our team arrived here yesterday from various bits of the world.
Some are still not arrived.
Yeah, Ilya, you've been here for a few days.
Yeah, for a few days we organized the Stable Summit. Quite popular, especially this year, growing because of the hype on stablecoin, obviously.
Yeah.
We had great speakers, and yeah.
Who was your favourite speaker?
You can't ask him that.
Why not?
Because he's an organizer of the event. He's going to go. He's going to choose specials.
I have to say my boss.
Yeah. Julian was absolutely amazing.
There's this guy called Julian. He was fantastic.
He's definitely not on my remuneration committee at all.
So and it ran for 2 days as well.
The event, was for 2 days. Friday, Saturday. We do it always before EthCC.
Yep.
Every year. Before DEFCON in Bangkok, and also before East Denver.
Okay.
What were the topics? What were the? Because obviously stablecoins have been, I think, the narrative so far this year, and
we've talked about them quite a bit on this podcast so far this year,
and continue to be. And you hear people say they are potentially the only use case for crypto, which we don't believe. But within that narrative, what was coming to the front? At,
of course, summit? Payment, stablecoin for payment. I wouldn't say so. I would say like stablecoin is the second product market fit crypto. The first one is obviously Bitcoin.
Yeah.
As maybe like, digital gold. And it was last year.
I still think that's a bit of a retrospective though.
Okay.
Well, it was always cryptocurrency to me.
Payment method.
So I think it was always meant to be payment. I think what people realised was that payment's no good in a volatile asset. Right. Simply.
If you're not the quote currency,
it's not Argentina in the night. So like I think stablecoins for me are the natural evolution of what is the main use case, which is payment. And I think kind of people have retrofitted digital gold and store of value to Bitcoin, and that's become a bit of a self-fulfilling cycle, right?
I think the macro situation around the world has probably propelled that a lot more as well, right? When you've got post-crisis, post-COVID countries printing fiat at a rate that's unprecedented before, to have this asset.
Half of all dollars printed have been printed since 2020.
Right, which makes
mad when you think
helps with the narrative of Bitcoin being alternative to gold.
But anyway, sorry, I interrupted. Which you'll find to see that I do a lot on the podcast.
I know, because I've been following the podcast for quite some time.
Listener number one.
And the funny part is I was always saying, would be nice to invite someone to the podcast.
Guess number one.
Never thought it would actually be.
No, I said, I was saying Bitcoin it's for me the first use case as, digital gold, and payment stable coins obviously the second. And for institutional adoption, you need a regulatory framework and a product market fit. So now you have a regulatory framework with the Genius Act and everything, and you have a product market fit, which is payments.
So do you think this is sort of like a year-on-year double-digit growth for stablecoins? You think we're going to see, are we at the start of like 2012 for tech companies? Is it kind of that next 10 years is going to be like that. I always think these things are about a 10-year sort of cycle, you know?
Yeah, most likely. I mean, it's going to grow for sure. Now the question is it winner takes it all? Is it the winner takes it all thing, or are they going to be like, everyone is issuing its own stable?
That's what it feels like. It's like since we've had the Genius Act come to the fore, it feels like every day you see another issuer going, oh, we're going to do our own stablecoin.
But there was that interesting carve-out, isn't there, where they banned the tech companies from issuing their own.
Right, so no Facebook,
so no
Google.
No Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting carve-out.
And you would think, not really, can't stand up in the US where competition tends to win out when it comes to monopoly constraints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also, they will find a way around it. Like, it might not be a AWS stablecoin or
just invest, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Just spin up another.
Just invest in a startup.
But I have been surprised by the number of announcements we've had around we're launching a stablecoin.
So do you think it's winner takes all? Well, I mean, it's obviously Circle are the leading horse in that, but then you've got Robinhood making moves. You've got, I mean, you see Revolut haven't making moves into stables, but are obviously making big moves into making an exchange, a proper exchange, and all that. So I wouldn't. I never think finance is winner takes all. Actually, if you look at TradFi, it's not winner takes all, right? Individual firms always manage to carve out a niche,
and potentially for a while. They might have dominance for 18 months, 2 years, and then something shifts, either tech shifts or.
But then, as a stablecoin issuer, you need to make money. In order to make money, it's quite simple. It's just T-bills and so you need volumes.
Yeah.
And not everyone will get equal volumes. Clearly, I think so. Yeah. Not a winner takes it all. But
do you think it'll follow a classic? This would be a good maths thing. Will it follow Benford's law? This law where the first, the second is half the frequency of the first, and the third is a third of the first, and it follows this. You see this law in like populations in cities and frequency of words used in alphabets. It seems to be an emergent property of
lots of things.
Even the universe itself. It's used in forensic accounting.
Okay. What for?
So basically, when people are fraudulently cooking the books, they change the numbers, and then the numbers don't follow Benford's law. Okay. And so they've used deviations from the law to say, well, clearly you've been doing something, because it's so the numbers actually themselves follow the same law. Like one is the most common number, then 2 is the next because of course decimal system. So they actually use it. So do you think it'll follow Benford's law, where we'll have Circle,
maybe, probably, but
Tether, and
you
then
won't have thousands of. It's a bit like blockchains. Like you have so many blockchains that everyone says, "Oh, the world is multi-chain." Yes, it is. But do you need so many blockchains? You have a lot of blockchains that completely have no volume, no TVR, nothing. And are they going to sustain?
And the end state is probably no one really caring or knowing what blockchain the app that they're interacting with is operating on.
Oh, this is this idea that it all gets abstracted away.
And similar maybe with stable coins as well. You might have all these issuers underneath, but if they're effectively doing the same thing and you
create a meta stablecoin, call it USD.
Yeah.
and then actually underneath, but
who are the ultimate controllers? Who are the ultimate controllers of the amount of USD that are in circulation, regardless of how many people want to issue and how many companies want to issue them? They have to be backed. Well, you'd hope that they'd be backed by dollars coming in.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Tether.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Tether.
But that's interesting then. So that was is that the narrative then? Is the payment rails mostly?
It's a narrative, and then obviously there is a political narrative on Europe, like the euro stablecoin, and is it Circle who is going to take it as well? It's bad for Europe.
Which plays into some of the other things we were talking about before about the US stocks now being
US stocks,
available.
Robinhood.
That's Robinhood, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so have Europe kind of lost out again, as we can now trade US stocks on chain through various mechanisms, and Europe have not got there again?
Yeah, because US stock were not allowed for non-professional investor in Europe. And Robinhood arrived and yesterday announced, okay, we tokenize it, and now it's available for everyone in Europe and the US firm. So it's amazing for crypto, for blockchain, but for Europe, I don't know.
And that's totally compliant with, is it MiFID 2.
Yeah, it's compliant with
sorry,
MiCA. It's compliant with MiCA
Yeah.
and everything.
And that's totally compliant with that.
Yeah.
That's got to piss off Kraken, I think, because 2 weeks ago we were talking about what great
Them
moves they've
launching
made
tokenized stocks,
and how I think they'd executed incredibly well. Obviously, quite a big deal, and I think that was the Kraken move against what had been going on with the exchange or company that we don't want to talk about, but we always end up talking about.
Never mention
Coinbase.
Brian, come on the podcast.
But no, so if you think there are these sort of newly emergent financial companies like Coinbase and Kraken and now Robinhood making moves in the space.
But that was actually going to be a point. I don't think Robinhood is newly emergent, and maybe that's why they will win. Robinhood, I would counter, is a way more of a household name than definitely Circle
and
definitely Kraken.
Yeah,
maybe not Coinbase, but Coinbase is S&P 500. But
right.
Robinhood, that is like big name in the
like
in the
household
US, it's
name.
huge.
Yeah, household.
Huge.
I'd say even household name even in Europe.
You think? If you weren't in and around crypto and finance, would you know about it?
Maybe it's very hard to decouple yourself from being terminally online. But like, if you think back to like what was big narrative in COVID,
I mean, it was huge. From COVID,
Wall Street bets and like we're going to squeeze the hedge funds, and
that all linked into Robinhood.
That's all was. Or Robinhood was the vehicle by which that was done.
Yeah.
So I come back to the thing that it only really exists because people really actually want to trade CFDs, but you can't do it in the US.
Or people just want to invest / punt.
Here's the question: when does investment turn into gambling?
I don't think
is it purely a time horizon? thing?
No.
If you gamble over 20 years, because it's just more of a surefire bet, that's investing. But if you gamble over 20 seconds, that's gambling.
Yeah,
Is it?
Depending on the time frame.
Yeah. Because I mean, is it gambling if you make a super
long-term bet on who's going to be prime minister in 3 years' time or something?
It's still gambling, or is it investing? Right, is it depend to do with what the expected payoff is? Is it in investing you don't know the expected payoff, but gambling you do know the expected payoff? Is that the fundamental difference?
Possibly. Yeah, but although there's lots of investments that you can do like that as well.
But I would say gambling, there is also a mindset you have absolutely no clue on what you're doing. I mean, investing, there is, like sort of a framework behind, like a logic on why you expect to do well.
That's the route that I was going to take in trying to come up with a counter or an answer. In most institutional investment environments, there is a process and a method, and sometimes it's very well defined and sometimes it's not.
What lacks in crypto?
Is gambling that you actually lose all your stake if you lose?
That can happen in
you don't
investing
lose all of your
too.
stake.
Well, yeah,
It's just
We've seen it happen.
I'm just down 99.999%. Could still go up. Look at MicroStrategy.
It was an investment.
And they're obviously very closely related, and the languages are similar, right? Expected payoffs.
Yeah. It's very interesting because GambleFi is a bit of a narrative, I think, at the moment. Say for me on my crypto Twitter, whether or not I'm just getting a particular, mood music pipe to my particular proclivities. Polymarket's GambleFi, right?
Yes.
It's been a big narrative from this year, right?
The gambling thing is, I found that very interesting that you can't easily answer the question and just can't rebuff that and go, oh no, there's this clear difference here. And I wonder if it comes back to like vested interest in terms of how things were regulated initially. Like, so gambling tends to disproportionately focus the low income people who can't afford it, whereas investing, it's fine. It's higher income people who tend to be able to put large amounts of money to work investing.
Maybe it's to do with like investing. The return comes after some like economic use to the money. I invest my money in X company. That company is going to put that money to economic use, and then therefore I expect a return from that. Same as like if I lend the government, 100 quid, they're going to put that money to. Is it economic use?
It's going to go somewhere.
They're going to put it into the pockets of pensioners, and then they're going to pay me 105.
But it's very different from putting like 50 quid on the dogs. Or,
exactly that.
Yeah.
But then again,
it's so many steps removed to get there.
It comes back to investing is a bit what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
While gambling is almost, I would say, for fun. No?
Yeah, but I mean, do you not find investing fun? I'm just playing devil's advocate here, I'm not trying to. I don't know any of the answers either.
How is the investing environment? given that's part of what you do?
Venture capital is people are looking at a lot of the narrative, stablecoin, infra, RWA tokenization. Actually, we were one of the first to tokenize a private credit fund.
Oh, okay.
With Midas, a DeFi protocol on Morpho, and the fund was Fasanara. So a couple of billions in private credit in London. So RWA tokenization. This is really a hot topic. Probably the third product market fit after Bitcoin, stablecoins. So on the venture capital side, we look at security, privacy, with formal verification. You're the math expert, so you probably know about formal verification that comes into crypto.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Also FHE with Zama, where we are a big investor, so the leading FHE company doing end-to-end encryption.
How can we decide? Is this due to skills that you guys have got in-house, which makes you feel like you know a particular sector or subsector, or is it just that's what you guys find interesting? How do you figure out what your thesis is?
So we are not a proper VC. We don't have LPs, so we don't have clients. We invest our own money. So this make it
prop VC.
It's prop VC. It's more like family office type. So it makes it easier because we don't have to follow a thesis. But for example, we don't really invest anymore in gaming NFTs. We stay on the DeFi, infra, consumer tooling. Gaming, it's a bit. And the NFT bubble is a bit over.
I never thought it was.
It was a thing.
Yeah, I just thought it was shit.
Yeah.
I remember playing some of the. Maybe I'm just not a gamer.
Yeah. But the gaming market is huge.
Yeah, the gaming market is huge. But
maybe not in. In Europe less than in the US. If you're European VC, we are global, but of course, if you are in Europe, your network is a bit more in Europe. And to be honest, gaming it's in Asia and in the US. Gaming is happening. It's if you start a gaming company in Europe, good luck. It's hard, really hard.
It always felt like NFTs were. I felt they were a desperate attempt to find a use case for blockchain that didn't really need it. But your point on gaming is a good one because skins and items from within games have been around for a long time. Right?
In-game payments and stuff, I think.
And that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere at all.
No.
So interesting. And what are you going to be thinking about as we sort of round the middle of the year towards the back end of the year? Is stablecoins going to continue to be the dominant theme?
Probably this year, yes. Yeah. And next year, it already started with RWA tokenization, and probably next year it's going to be, the next huge narrative, and AI, obviously, with AI agents.
Yeah,
agents seem to be everywhere. I haven't been out to the conference much yet, but to the two side events that I've been to, agentic and AI agents is all or just AI.
That's just trying to get on the hype train, though, isn't it? I find the tokenization of real world assets quite a lot more interesting than the AI
that
stuff.
To me felt like prior to it doesn't really matter, but prior to stablecoins last year, traveling around Singapore and Bangkok, everything was RWA, and maybe what we're seeing is this sort of slightly lag effect. People talk about it in conferences for 6 months and a year, and then they actually go off and build things.
The key thing about RWA is you actually have to touch the RW.
Yes.
And the RW is notoriously slow.
Yeah.
Because in the RW exists lawyers, regulations,
all regulatory,
all this kind of stuff, right? So
you
can be very quick with paper stuff, right? You can be very
even to tokenize, a building, for example. What people do is just they build a company. So first you build a company, an SPV or whatever. Then you buy with the SPV, you buy the building, and then you issue shares to the owner of the building. And you tokenize those shares. It's not usually it's buildings that you tokenize directly. So you still have, a legal part that you need to do upfront.
Yeah, it touches the world, right? So,
exactly.
This is the anytime you get that interface, everything's always slow. I think people forget that sometimes in crypto. I think they feel like, oh, it could be moving faster, or it could be doing this. Is like, well, no, actually, there's the real world is slow and takes and this stuff takes time.
Yeah, and if you're trying to revolutionize or rebuild finance from the ground up, you're invariably going to have to interact with old pieces of finance to try and either integrate with them or remove them, and that takes time. And particularly if you're trying to convince large institutions to do things, that's a very long process normally.
Yeah. As we've talked about before, when I gave away some trading alpha.
Yes. What I want to know is, how come you look so cool and non-sheeny, and I'm getting hotter and hotter?
Oh, it's incredibly warm in here.
Yeah.
You know, it is incredibly warm in here.
It is.
The wine is actually
But it's
delicious.
cooler than outside.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I can hear the
If you
air
have this
conditioning.
mindset, you still...
In the grand scheme of things of the universe, it's actually incredibly cold.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, it's only what 300 Kelvin in here at the moment.
Yeah.
It could be a lot hotter.
Could be a lot hotter.
It couldn't be that much colder. You know, I was actually going to say, complete aside, did you see the Bitcoin hash rate
No.
after the Americans dropped the bombs on Iran?
No.
Basically.
Oh, yes. No, I thought it was a meme. Was it true?
I thought it was real. Maybe they've been hoodwinked by a thing. I thought the Bitcoin hash rate dropped off because after they
Because it
dropped-
wasn't actually a bunker, it was a
well,
mining
like, you know,
rig.
well, they've been obviously maybe not just those particular bombs instead, but they've been, basically because they've been bombing Iran, they've been knocking out these infrastructure bits,
Really?
and they've actually been mining shit with Bitcoins.
Right, okay.
Did you not see?
Yeah, no, I saw it, but I didn't believe it.
And same number of thing, like a load of particular Twitter accounts went dark as well.
Okay.
Did you not? Yeah, loads of like the kind of like disinformation type Twitters that you would expect to come from
All
like,
just went off.
yeah, like loads of like you know, Scottish independence Twitter accounts and stuff like that.
All
True
these ones
story.
that stir the,
Yeah,
stir the pot.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
It is interesting, if true.
It's not AI news.
I've got to go on Twitter to find out.
I'm experiencing this weird sort of out-of-body thing, because normally you're the really skeptical one. When I come with something that I've seen on Twitter and be like, oh yeah, and you're like, no,
That's not real.
that's not real.
The one I don't think is real is the tech emails Twitter. You know, the one where it's like supposedly
from
screenshots of
Zuckerberg
people's
or-
email. Yeah, Zuckerberg emailing about buying Snapchat, and I'm like, someone's making that up.
Really?
How would you get a screenshot of Mark Zuckerberg's email?
Or when Steve
Are they
Jobs
all-
has emailed like Bezos and said, stop trying to poach our...
Yeah. Steve Jobs has emailed himself about like going out and touching grass. And
Yes.
I'm like, unless I'm completely mistaken, and it's like they've all come from documents that have been subpoenaed in
Panama files.
Yeah, Panama files. Maybe that's where they've all come from. Come on.
But actually, AI security is a huge topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just talked to a company yesterday, actually. They built something around AI security. And he explained that today all the big companies, they give access to their employees to ChatGPT and all this stuff, to be more efficient.
Yeah.
But then the employee arrives and they just put all the codes, all the private data.
Yeah, all the API keys.
All the API, everything.
Yeah.
Just
paste it in there.
in ChatGPT, and they're like, "Oh, can you optimize this?" etc. And then people realize, "Oh shit!" Like this is the whole data now, on ChatGPT or whatever or something else.
You could definitely see it in a small anecdotal case. I was using Copilot, when I'm writing code. Because would you believe it, I do actually have a job that's not just being on this podcast.
hosting.
I actually do some technical work every now and again. Not too often, but But anyway,
You're an electrician, aren't you?
yeah. And you'd always have like autocomplete in certain ways, which would like you kind of look at it and be like that. It only could know what I'm autocompleting here, because it's quite a bespoke thing within a very like component of a trading system, which that somebody would, if you knew why you were building a trading system, you would build it in a certain way. But of course, it's not public information. This is like quite deep into the system of like where you're like actually it's quite proprietary, and it's like auto-completing proprietary information. And I'm thinking like, and sometimes you got API key equals, and it like auto-completes an API key, and you're like, I wonder where it's learned that.
That's not great.
And also, and I'm thinking like, this is surely it's only like been trained on. It can. There's just been occasional cases, and I can't think of an exact specific example. But occasional cases where I've like looked at the autocomplete and I'm like, how the fuck has it got like that with the
right context?
Jane Street hasn't posted their code in there or something. So how are they going to get around it with this?
Now they are going to build software that you can, directly plug into the ChatGPT, etc. So when people are going, when companies are going to, buy those ChatGPT Pro package for companies, they are going to include straight away like a software.
It's like a layer in between.
Yeah, it's like a layer in between, it's a backend layer, but you don't see it. But when someone is then posting data or whatever, it's automatically blocking it, or I don't know. Things like that. So
it's another AI. It's another AI.
It's
learning.
It's
learning
this was
what's
actually
bad
my question. I was like, but to solve this AI security, do you use AI?
Yeah.
And he was like, yes. Do you use AI?
It's like when you have that problem with password lists or something. You give them a defined set, but it's never enough. It needs to be growing. So the natural way is to actually make it an AI which learns what's wrong, and you can feed back. But then you've just got similar sort of problems.
Yeah, because who does the AI security for the AI security?
Yeah.
Who polices the police?
And then you have a loop.
Then you can get some extra yield from it.
Exactly.
I don't know. Like, I kind of have. I live in my world with the AI stuff. I have like two extreme viewpoints. Sometimes it's quite amazing what I can do. Sometimes I like, particularly. I mean, I use it if I'm writing code. It's for me completely replaced Stack Overflow, and it's even starting to replace search for me in some ways.
Yeah.
But then sometimes we had to ring FedEx because of our merchandise is held up in French customs. Thanks, Brexit. And
you voted. I'm not putting.
Yeah. Not for that though. It was something totally different.
I went to stay.
Stay, please.
No, what I actually really wanted was kind of the best of both worlds: cake and eat it. Is that possible? But anyway, phone call on to this AI. You get put through to an AI on when you call FedEx or whatever, and it was the worst thing you've ever heard in your entire life. So there's clearly this breadth of abilities that it has, where it can do this amazing stuff with particular bits of code and really good for recommendations and replacing search for me. But then
and law, documents, writing first drafts of documents. I find it incredible in terms of write me a first draft on this type of contract. You are a
market making services agreement.
No, actually,
I don't use that as formal, legal
formal.
Letter, like notaries. You almost don't need but then it's about trust. Do you trust the AI to write something that where then you are liable maybe for millions of dollars or whatever? Do you trust just the AI to do the draft, even if you read the draft, you're looks amazing, but you don't know actually.
Yeah, you're not a lawyer, right?
Yeah, the same way the code can look amazing and not work, or
but that's why it's actually, I was going to make a point. That's why it's kind of what it's doing is actually raising a drawbridge between juniors or laymen's who don't really know, and then already senior or technical people or skilled people who now use it as an absolute productivity enhancer, but also know when it's wrong or dangerous or no, that's incorrect. And so what you're actually finding is it's kind of been an amazing productivity tool for senior people, but entry level people.
Yeah,
and the gap is widening and widening. Yeah.
So what you are saying is AI are going to replace junior?
Yeah.
But then the junior are the only ones who, the new generation, who know how to use it properly. Because the senior guys, they know how to use 5% of it.
There's a sweet spot though, right? When you're sort of, my age.
What a surprise.
When you're sort of my age, mate.
It's a perfect sweet spot.
Yeah, sweet spot where you've kind of you've been around a little bit to know the tricks, but you're also got your finger on the pulse.
But you kind of want them to, it will never happen. You want them to have the first 4 years of their careers, particularly the technical guys, with no exposure to it at all. Go and learn how to code properly. Go and be exposed to production.
We have one engineer at Low Tech that doesn't use AI.
Really?
Yeah, and he's our best engineer.
But he's also not in the junior.
He's not the junior.
They're super experienced there.
Yeah. But this is interesting because why does he refuse to use it?
He doesn't. His whole approach is knowing exactly what every character in the code does, as far as I can tell.
I think, and it's true, and it kind of goes into that paper. I don't know if you saw it. And again, do I believe it or not? But like they did a paper they did a study, where they published a paper where they looked at the brain and the information retention with AI and without AI. And essentially, when you're using the AI to do stuff for you, you are not taking the information in at all. So
sitting in local RAM.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, it's sitting. It's not getting pushed into the hard drive. No. It's like you might think that you're like, oh yeah, cool, I get to write this little bit of code for me, and I understand what it's doing, and therefore I've learned that. That's not happening at all. It's just we're just kind of using it it's making us super lazy, which makes us not learn.
Or critical of like. Yeah, in the way it's doing this particular
exactly. It's a very interesting study. Whether or not you believe it, because of course it's all a little bit like, they've put ECGs on people's heads and looked at which part of the brain is activated and all this kind of stuff, and done. But it was doing the rounds on the internet. And going back to what the discussion is, this engineer wants to understand every single little bit, and therefore like the crutch of AI. Which is a bit like, I'm guilty of this as well. I want to do like a 3-line Python function. I want to pivot a polars data frame or like something like that. Something I know how to do. I just need to look at the docs to refresh my memory because it's 2 months since I've done it. It's a really good thing to do, but then I don't learn it for this time. I then have to go back to the AI each time.
Or you can write one sentence as a prompt and it'll give you the answer. Yeah. You're like, okay, great.
Yeah. But then on the long term, today I think the stats were AI is coding better than 80% of the dev. So you still have you guys in the 20. You guys in the 20%.
But full of flattery.
But then AI is going to learn how to code much faster, on an exponential scale, then the AI will be better than 90%. Soon 99%.
Particularly with I was watching a video of one of these ex-OpenAI guys was saying that the bottleneck at the moment is actually AI researcher time. You have to basically construct, run experiments, look at the data from, about like how to improve the models themselves, right? And how to, the idea that DeepSeek came up with to change the way part of the model works versus what OpenAI were doing, which was a massive increase in training speed. These kind of changes that they're making to the actual inner linear algebra and like how they're combining all of these matrix multiplications and all this kind of stuff. This takes time.
Yep.
And
that's have proper to have academic research.
Well, I mean, it's what they're all doing. It's what all the staff researchers at OpenAI and Llama and all these guys are doing, right?
But it's much more down the academic end of speed as opposed to the tech end of speed.
Well, this is the point though, because you still have to kind of like construct the experiment, run the experiment, look at the data. Sometimes, of course, they're human. They put a bug in one of the codes, so like load of the data that they've ran is bollocks and all this kind of stuff. And but once you start having AIs to be able to do the research to make the AIs better, and there was like some rough back of the fag packet calculations where you can say, well, maybe like it'll give us like a 10x speed up in this bit, or maybe like if you get an AI that never writes any bugs in the Python code or something that they're using to put these models together, and like gives you a 2x speed up and all these like little things, actually then you can start to see how you can get these compounding exponential effects, and maybe then at that point we're all like out of a job.
And you think that
they've just been full-time podcaster.
Okay, we're diversifying.
With AI boys.
Yeah. Sitting on the couch.
But that's the point. But I don't know enough as I'm not an AI researcher, but I have done a bit of research, and I don't know if I'm a little skeptical, because it's very easy to kind of go like, oh, well, we'll just, because you can always multiply big numbers together and say, well, if we've got 100 AI researchers or 1,000 AI human ones working at the moment, but we add in 100,000 AI researchers, if you know what I mean, then they're going to produce this exponential compounding growth. And you're like, well, yeah, but they might also kind of all be shit and junior.
I hold on to the hope that there's the spark of ingenuity which comes from the human side of creation, and we see it obviously most prominently in art and stuff, but you get it in academic research where people have leaps in terms of understanding and approaches. Do you think with enough compute we get to that being a thing of the past? And the reason I ask is because I saw something recently where AI is not very good at coming up with jokes, original jokes, like because they can't do that strange thing that
some
happens.
humans aren't either.
Yeah, that's
No, but yeah, I get your point. You feel like sometimes AI just when the answer is just it's not the truth. It's something you want to hear.
right. It's a reflection back. Yeah.
The answer. So
This
that
is
you're
some
happy.
deep, this is
like,
some
to
deep
feel
question. Is there actually like original thought going on
in there? Yeah, or that leap between the prompt path that you put them down, and they're going and getting all the, working out the probabilities of what comes next based on the context that you've given them. And if there's something over here that's funny, they're never going to make that like connection over there because it's just not on the right. They're not getting rewarded in the right way. And so research often has that sort of bringing together two different fields aspects to it. And I just wonder if there'll be a researcher who chucks in enough randomness somehow that causes that to be something that the AIs can do. But I just, in the way that they feel at the moment, it doesn't feel that they're there.
Yeah, it's also the thing of like the central assumption to everything at the moment is like more parameters
better
makes better smarts, and of course it might just do that, right? You might just be able to add so many parameters that it just you don't get actually any meaningful improvements.
Better,
That's the big worry, isn't it? I don't want to be short the market if they figure out that that's going to happen. That's what what's the head guy at Facebook? Yann LeCun. Yeah.
French guy.
That's That's the problem.
Mathematician.
Okay. I've met enough French mathematicians in my time.
They're good at maths.
Some of them are. But he's very down bad on LLMs, right? As an actual proper solution to AGI.
Right.
He's like, these are very, very good, and it's going to be like having a very well-meaning grad student in your pocket, but like actually is this a step towards AGI and super intelligence, because I think AGI is as good as the average human, I think is what AGI is, but super intelligence is the one that people are talking about, which is like the AI is better at every human in everything. Maybe will LLMs get to that level, or do you need some other sort of architecture? It's architecture really, because LLMs is an architecture, right?
Yeah.
You've designed a particular set of transformations of the data, and and it's essentially matrix multiplications, and you multiply by ever larger matrices with more numbers that you have to tune in there. But like, is that architecture enough?
Sufficient? Yeah. And where does given we're at a crypto conference, where does crypto and blockchain sit in with this? I don't know, because my maybe lazy assumption is that once we have the agents and AIs, blockchain becomes the natural way for them to move value around, because it's ones and zeros, it's bits, it's compute. Is that how those two interact?
Yeah.
What, like smart contracts become how different AIs can assert that what they're receiving is true.
We've seen it out there in the conference already. You've got agents running around spending in wallets and active on blockchains.
Blockchain is obvious. It's an obvious layer for AI agent to get paid.
Right, because trying to connect them to a bank account is so bloody hard. Right? Like, can you imagine trying to do a 2FA? It's like,
I hope you found that enjoyable. I think we've come to the end of our time here, which I think we're all very thankful for, because the wine is over and it's very hot in here. I want to thank Ilya from State Capital for coming on and talking to us today. Being our first ever guest in the stunning can.
First and best guest.
Number one guest so far. Yeah. Literally, well, we won't do any more guests.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
And I hope you enjoyed the discussion. We talked about all sorts of stuff: stable summits, AIs,
Robinhood news.
Of course, Coinbase. Can't get away from
RWA tokenization.
RWA tokenization. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you at the next one.